What if I told you that you could plant something in your backyard this season, just once, and then walk outside 30 years from now and still be harvesting food from it? No replanting every spring, no starting over, no paying $7 for a bunch of asparagus at the grocery store when you've got 30 plants 2 steps from your back door. That's not a fantasy. That's what perennial crops actually do. And today I'm going to show you the 7 best ones to plant for a lifetime of harvests. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which plants to put in the ground and why. Hey everyone, welcome back to Nature and Green Focus, the channel where we dig into real, practical ways to grow food, build food independence, and work with nature instead of against it. I'm so glad you're here. You know, when I first started getting serious about growing my own food, I made the same mistake most people make. I planted annuals, tomatoes, zucchini, beans, and I loved it. But every single year I was starting from scratch. Every spring I was buying seeds or starts, prepping beds and crossing my fingers. It was rewarding, don't get me wrong, but it was also a lot of work year after year after year. And then I discovered perennials. And honestly, it changed everything. The first spring my asparagus bed came into full production. After just 2 years of patience, I walked outside and there were dozens of fat, gorgeous spears just waiting for me. I hadn't planted a single thing. I hadn't done almost anything. The earth just delivered. That is the magic of perennial food crops. You invest once and then nature pays you back for decades. Today, we're looking at the 7 perennial crops that any home gardener in America can plant, whether you've got a sprawling backyard or a modest suburban lot, and harvest from for the next 30 years. Let's get into it. Before we get to the list, let's make sure we're all on the same page about what a perennial actually is, because I think a lot of people underestimate just how powerful this concept is for home food production. An annual plant, like a tomato or a cucumber, lives for one season. You plant it, it grows, you harvest, it dies, done. Next year, you do it again. A perennial plant comes back year after year after year. The root system survives the winter, the plant reemerges in spring, and it often gets bigger and more productive with each passing year. Some of these plants will outlive you. That's not an exaggeration. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for backyard food systems, and this is something I talk a lot about on this channel. When you combine multiple perennial crops in a thoughtful layout, you're not just planting individual plants, you're building a food ecosystem, something that stabilizes over time, builds soil health on its own, supports pollinators, and becomes more productive the longer you leave it alone. Think of it this way. A mature asparagus bed, a blueberry hedge, a fig tree, a patch of walking onions, some comfrey for mulch, and a ground cover of strawberries, that's not just a garden. That's a food system that operates almost on autopilot once it's established. And you don't need acres to do this. People are doing this on quarter-acre suburban lots. I've seen remarkable setups on just a few hundred square feet of smart layered planting. That's what today is all about. The 7 plants that anchor this kind of system, productive, hardy, and built to last. The 7 perennial crops. Crop number 1, asparagus. Let's start with the one that requires the most patience and delivers the biggest long-term payoff, asparagus. I know, you've heard it takes a couple of years before you can harvest, and that's true. You plant asparagus crowns in spring, you let them grow without harvesting for the first year, you take a light harvest in year 2, and then in year 3, it's on. And here's the thing, a well-established asparagus bed can produce for 20 to 30 years. Some beds have been productive for 50 years or more. You plant it once, and your grandchildren might still be eating from it. For best results in most of the U.S., plant Jersey Knight or Jersey Supreme. Both are high-yielding, disease-resistant male varieties. Give them full sun, well-drained soil, and dig that bed deep, at least 12 inches. Asparagus roots go down far, and they don't want to sit in wet soil. The payoff? Several pounds of spears per plant every spring for the rest of your gardening life. Crop number 2, strawberries. Okay, now we're talking about something that rewards you much faster and keeps on giving. Strawberries are technically short-lived as individual plants, but here's the trick. They propagate themselves. They send out runners, those runners root and become new plants, and your patch just keeps expanding and renewing itself year after year without you doing much at all. Plant a patch today and it will still be feeding you a decade from now, naturally refreshing itself without you doing much. Choose June-bearing varieties like Early Glow or All-Star for a big concentrated harvest, or ever-bearing varieties like Seascape or Albion if you're in a warmer climate, zones 8 and above. Ever-bearing types are especially great. Strawberries want full sun, consistent moisture, and patience through the first 2 years while they establish, and then you're looking at 5 to 15 pounds of berries per bush every summer. And I'll be honest, there is nothing in the world like walking outside in a June morning and eating a sun-warmed strawberry right off the plant. Nothing. Crop number 3, blueberries. If you only plant one fruiting shrub in your backyard, make it blueberries. These plants are incredible long-term investments. A well-cared-for blueberry bush can produce for 40 to 50 years, and as it matures, it gets more productive, not less. But here's what most people get wrong with blueberries: the soil pH. Blueberries are acid lovers. They need a soil pH between 4.5 and 5.5, significantly more acid than most garden soil. Before you plant, get a soil test. Amend with sulfur if needed, and use an acidic mulch like pine bark or pine needles around the base. Plant at least 2 different varieties for cross-pollination. This dramatically increases your yield. Good pairings, Blue Crop and Blue Ray, or Sunshine Blue and Misty for warmer climates. Give them full sun, consistent moisture, and patience through the first 2 years while they establish, and then you're looking at 5 to 15 pounds of berries per bush every summer. Crop number 4, walking onions. Egyptian walking onions. This one is a little unusual, and I love it. If you've never heard of walking onions, you're in for a treat. Walking onions, also called Egyptian walking onions or tree onions, are perennial allium that reproduces and spreads on their own. Here's how they work. Instead of producing a flower, the stalks produce a cluster of small bulbils at the top. Those bulbils get heavy, the stalk bends over, the bulbils touch the ground, and they root, walking the plant a little further each year. You get green onion tops all season long, small bulbils for planting or eating, and underground bulbs you can harvest in fall. It's one of the most self-sufficient plants you can grow. Plant them once, divide the clump every few years, and they'll spread and produce indefinitely. Great for zones 3 through 9. They're also one of the earliest plants to emerge in spring, pushing up green shoots when the ground is barely thawed. First fresh allium flavor of the year? Walking onions. Crop number 5, comfrey. Now this one isn't food you'll eat in the traditional sense, but I'd argue it's one of the most important plants in any perennial food system, and it absolutely earns a spot on this list. Comfrey is a deep-rooted perennial herb, and it's a powerhouse for soil fertility. Its roots go down 4 to 6 feet, mining minerals and nutrients from deep in the subsoil that your food crops can't reach. You then chop those big leaves and lay them right on top of your beds. As they break down, they release potassium, phosphorus, calcium, nitrogen, basically a complete organic fertilizer grown in your own backyard. You can also steep comfrey leaves in water to make a liquid fertilizer that your tomatoes, squash, and fruiting plants will absolutely love. The variety to get is Bocking 14. It's a sterile variety that won't spread from seed and get out of control. You propagate it from root cuttings, and once it's established, it's nearly indestructible. In a perennial food system, comfrey is the engine that keeps the whole thing running. Plant it at the base of your fruit trees, along your garden edges, anywhere you want to build fertility over time. Crop number 6, fruit trees. Focus on fig and mulberry. Okay, fruit trees as a category could fill an entire channel, and honestly, on Nature and Green Focus, we do go deep on this. But for today, I want to highlight 2 trees specifically because they're exceptional performers for the home food grower: figs and mulberries. Let's start with figs. Figs are one of the most ancient cultivated fruits on Earth, and there's a reason for that. They're incredibly productive, relatively low maintenance, and can produce for 100 years or more in the right conditions. One mature fig tree can give you 20 to 50 pounds of fruit in a season. Zone 7 and warmer, they're as close to effortless as a fruit tree gets. In colder zones, varieties like Chicago Hardy can be grown in the ground with winter protection or in large containers you bring inside. And mulberries, these are the underrated gem of the backyard orchard. Most people don't even think of them, but a mulberry tree can produce hundreds of pounds of sweet berries annually once it's mature. They're fast-growing, incredibly hardy across most of the U.S., require almost no pest management, and the fruit is delicious, fresh, frozen, or made into jam. The only problem with mulberries is that they produce so much you can't eat it all, which, for a food security-focused gardener, is exactly the kind of problem you want. Crop number 7, rhubarb. And our final perennial powerhouse, rhubarb. Rhubarb is one of the first harvestable crops of spring, pushing up vivid red stalks when most of the garden is still waking up. It's a cool season perennial that actually needs cold winters to thrive. Zones 3 through 7 are ideal. And once established, a rhubarb crown will grow bigger and more productive every single year. A 20-year-old rhubarb plant is a specimen, enormous, vigorous, producing more stalks than one family can use. A few notes. Only eat the stalks. The leaves are toxic and should be composted. Plant in a spot with full sun to light afternoon shade, rich soil, and good drainage. Let the plant establish fully in year 1 without harvesting, then go light in year 2. By year 3, harvest freely from May through June, then let it rest and recharge for the season. Combined with your strawberries and blueberries, rhubarb completes a remarkable spring harvest trifecta, and it'll be doing it every year for decades. I want to take a moment and zoom out, because what we've been talking about isn't just about saving money on groceries, though you absolutely will. When you plant a perennial food system, you are participating in something that industrial agriculture fundamentally cannot do. You're building soil instead of depleting it. You are creating habitat for pollinators and beneficial insects. You are reducing the need for synthetic inputs, the fertilizers, the pesticides, the plastic packaging that come attached to every piece of store-bought produce. A perennial food system, once established, gets more productive and more resilient over time, the opposite of how most of our food production works. The longer you leave it alone, the better it performs. Think about what that means for your family's food security. When prices spike at the grocery store, and they will, your asparagus and blueberries and figs don't care. They just keep growing. And there's something else I think about a lot. Every perennial you plant is a gift to the future, to the person who lives in your house after you, to the neighborhood you're in, to the ecosystem that depends on the diversity and stability these plants provide. The act of planting a tree or an asparagus bed is an act of hope, of commitment to a future that's greener and more abundant than the present, and I think we need more of that right now. Now, I don't want to leave you without being real about a few challenges, because every garden has them and perennial gardens are no different. Establishment time. Most of these crops need 1 to 2 years before they hit their stride. That can feel frustrating. My advice? Plant annuals alongside them in those early years, tomatoes, beans, squash, so you're getting harvests while you wait. And remember, you're building something for decades. 2 years of patience is nothing. Pests and disease. Bluebirds and squirrels love blueberries. Japanese beetles hit a lot of these plants in summer. My approach? Bird netting for berries during peak season, hand-picking beetles early in the morning when they're sluggish, and building a diverse planting that naturally supports predatory insects. A garden with lots of diversity takes care of itself better than a monoculture ever will. Soil issues. Almost every problem in a perennial garden traces back to soil. Before you plant, do a simple soil test. Your local cooperative extension office often does these cheaply or for free. Amend accordingly and let Comfrey and compost do their work over time. Your soil will get better every year. Spreading too aggressively. A couple of these plants, comfrey and walking onions especially, will spread if you let them. Just manage the edges, divide clumps periodically, and you're fine. The fact that they want to grow is a feature, not a bug. All right, if you've watched this far, you already know more about building a lifetime food system than most gardeners ever figure out. Here's my challenge to you. Pick one plant from this list and commit to getting it in the ground this season. Just one. Start with asparagus if you're patient. Start with strawberries if you want fast results. Start with comfrey if you want to supercharge a garden you already have. Drop a comment below and tell me, which of these 7 perennials are you most excited to plant? I read every single comment, and I genuinely love to know. And if you're new here at Nature and Green Focus, welcome. We dig deep on exactly this kind of content: food independence, forgotten agricultural knowledge, and building backyard systems that actually work. Hit that subscribe button and the bell so you never miss a new video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.